Okay, so I wanted to record a little piece on lucid dreaming. It has been a big part of my spiritual practice, actually. There was a period where I was very devoted to doing a lot of lucid dreaming, and it continues to be just an aspect of my life. I continue to have lucid dreams. I had one last night. So they happen sporadically. I think I'm somewhat of a natural lucid dreamer. I had my first lucid dream when I was 11. And then since then, it's just been a phenomenon in life that I find really, really interesting. It's opens up a playground of your mind to do a lot with. And that's what I'm going to explore in this recording. I'm not going to talk about how to lucid dream. I think there's so much material out there that people can look up for themselves, so many different techniques. But I would like to talk about the levels of lucid dreaming and the kind of the arc that people tend to go through when they get into this practice and how they begin doing it, because there's depth to it, and what we might do once we become lucid tends to change and our abilities grow. So I'm going to go through a typical order of things here. The first level to this, which is actually not even really properly starting in lucid dreaming, is a false lucid dream. And this is when you dream about having a lucid dream, where the content, the story content of the dream is that maybe you're talking about lucid dreaming, or you're just thinking, oh, I'm having a lucid dream, but it's not really with this lucidity, with this metacognitive awareness of being in a dream state while it's happening. That's just the content. And then maybe when you wake up from that dream, the dream was about lucid dreaming, but it wasn't actually a real lucid dream. You're still ensnared in the dream. So that can be a common experience, and it's worth looking out for. It's worth checking. Were you actually lucid? And I don't really think of lucidity as a binary. You are or you aren't. It seems to begin and fade in. You can become more and more lucid. Now, going from there, then we actually do begin to have lucid dreams, and the first proper stage is actually recognizing you're in a dream, that this is a dream. And then what can happen is it's surprising, it's a shock, like, oh my god, this is it. And people often then stumble out of the dream. They wake themselves up shortly after, so they haven't stabilized the dream. They notice, oh my god, it's a dream, and then they come out of it and they wake up very soon after. And there's tips to trying to stabilize the dream itself and maintain lucidity. Also what can happen is you become lucid in the dream, and then you don't wake up, but you lose the lucidity, so you fall back into the dream story. And then it just becomes a regular dream again. So one way to stabilize the dream, this is a funny one, is actually to spin around. You might find like, oh my god, this is a lucid dream. And then things start fading out and you feel yourself waking up. I don't know why, but give this a go. You just start spinning in circles in the dream, and sometimes that can have this disorientating effect that kind of keeps you back in it. Try that out, it's kind of a funny one. So say you get to that first level, you recognize it's a dream, and you don't immediately pop out of it or lose lucidity. And then you're like, oh wow, okay, now what? It's a dream. Then, very predictably, people start giving into their base urges because we have limited impulse control while we're dreaming. just there's reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex. And so then very quickly people go to trying to gratify deep desires. Often this is trying to fulfill sexual fantasies, having orgies and all that stuff, or going maybe violent, actually going on a rampage and outbursts and hitting the dream characters. You might have the sense that, I can act however I want and there's no consequences because this isn't real. That later on, when you get deeper into lucid dreaming, you recognize, no, there are no really consequence-free spaces, because how you treat the dream characters is still how you're treating yourself. It's still a reflection of what you've got going on in your mind. Another thing people can do at this stage is conjure up really tasty food to eat. That's quite an amazing thing to do. Eating pizzas or hot fudge sundaes or whatever it might be. And it works. You can taste that food in the dream. Now, this is a stage that a lot of people don't get over. If they are lucid dreaming, they just keep giving in to these impulses. Eventually you want to get over it, because there's much more to explore with lucid dreaming. So if you can, not just immediately go into sexual fantasies. Then what tends to follow is what I'm calling the superpower stage. And so this is very typical. You hear people trying to fly, or just develop different super abilities. One thing I'll say about flying, if people find it hard to fly in lucid dreaming, it's a skill to learn. And I think part of the reason they find it difficult is because they're trying to force it, which is they're contracting and solidifying their world, which actually hardens things and gets you more stuck within it, and it's harder to then zoom around and go up and stuff like this. So flying is actually a gentle process. You want to be releasing, letting go. Quick tip on how to fly in lucid dreams there. Other cool superpowers you can try to explore is like Doctor Strange type magic, world-bending, creating, morphing in the buildings and crunching things together and blowing things up. And you can take this very far. You can see just how much you can distort the dream world. You can change massive sceneries, teleport, go through wormholes, try telekinesis, moving objects, playing with time, rewinding time. You could turn into animals and fly that way, or gallop, or do all kinds of number of things. Another fun one, which maybe sounds less superhero-y, is to play music. You can try... You could try turning on a radio, but interestingly, technological devices tend not to work in dreams. Something about the state of our minds there doesn't understand kind of mechanistic actions, that there could be wires behind the scenes. You can't really turn on lights. They're not connected in that way. But sometimes it can work to turn on a radio, play a song, or just pick up an instrument. Make a guitar, make a piano, whatever it might be, and then just start going for it. You can find amazing songs are created. And then often, when you wake up, you want to remember them. It can be very hard to remember them. But, there are these stories of artists who came up with songs in their dreams. And so with lucidity, you can more deliberately try to do this. So after the superhero stage, then maybe a subset of that is like what I'm going to call Groundhog's Day simulating, where you see how much control you can have over the dream world, then you try to push it to its limits and break the simulation. And part of this can be trying to kill yourself in the dream in a number of different ways. That's why I'm calling it Groundhog Day sub-level there. If you guys know the movie, he has to relive a day, and he gets these effectively has these sort of superpowers of just knowing what's happening, and he can't escape the day. And one thing he turns to is like, can I get out of it? I won't go into more detail there about how to experiment in that way. You can imagine for yourself and see what happens, see what comes of it. So then another stage we can enter once we've done sort of a lot more of the flashy stuff is to start testing the extent of our cognitive abilities. So like I said, the fantasy trying to gratify base urges level, we notice that we have limited impulse control. So this is actually something cool to try to develop in the dream state. In a state of mind where you have limited impulse control, can you try to work on that and strengthen a faculty in a state where it's quite deprived to then really have a lot more of it in day-to-day life? It'll extend in that ways. And see to what degree, do you have access to brain function that you do when you're awake? You might try doing mental math in the dream and solving real-world problems, or problems you have outside of the dream, bringing them into the dream. Try to come up with solutions, remember them, and then when you come out, test them, see if they still hold up. There can be funny credulity that can happen in this state, because we're very susceptible in the dream state to just believing what is, even with lucidity. And so you can have these experiences of thinking you've solved something. It just feels very convincing in the moment, and you come out and dream and realize it was a bunch of hogwash. That can happen. You can push the limits of your lucidity and try to remember as much as you can about what is taking place outside the dream from within the dream. So while you're in the lucid dream, can you recall, what day is it? What night is it? Where are you sleeping? So it's one thing to recognize you're lucid within the dream, but can you remember what is outside the dream? That's a real test of lucidity. That's quite advanced. Following from testing cognitive abilities, we can go into using lucid dreaming for psychological investigation. So a very cool thing to realize is that all the dream characters are fragments of your subconscious. So then we might start talking to the dream characters and realize, we're just talking to ourselves here, asking them different questions to learn about ourselves. We'll see what hidden knowledge we have. And in exploring what dream characters there are, we see that there are different types of dream characters. They're not all as functionable, as intelligent, as clear. Not all of them seem to have as much, equally as much agency. Some of them seem more with it. Some of them are more willing participants. Some of them seem to be like more their own type of individual. It's very interesting. I think lucid dreaming is a state of mind that sits in a neighborhood of adjacent related states like astral projection and sleep paralysis that I would classify as different states that have enough of their own differences in subjectivity. And we can meet different types of entities in these states, and they might bleed into each other in interesting ways. You might be in a lucid dream and come out into a sleep paralysis and then get into an astral projection, and the types of beings, seeming beings that we encounter, talk to us, how they communicate to us. It's interesting to investigate where the information they're giving is coming from. Is it from within? There's a lot to explore there. I'll just say that. We might use this space as well to conjure up specific people from different time periods and try to communicate to them. That's a cool thing to do. I had a very cool lucid dream once where I wanted to speak to a friend of mine. Well, because actually before the lucid dream, I told my friend that, something I do regularly is lucid dream. Would you like me to try to find you in the dream and ask you something? And he came up with something. And so then next time I had a lucid dream, I was like, okay, let's find my friend. And initially I found him, but I found quite an immature version of him. So I had to find an older, wiser version of him. So I went forward in time and found an old man version of him to ask this question to. But also you could do this to famous people. And living or dead. It's very cool, very fun. You can send metta to different parts of yourself, to the beings that you find in the lucid dream. And spreading compassion and self-love throughout more sub-agents. That's a nice practice. Which leads on quite nicely to the next stage, is what I'm going to call is the healing stage, where we use lucid dreaming to heal ourselves. And this is a bit more getting into sort of powersy stuff, and is more advanced and has more sort of serious implications. It's less just playing around in the dream. Sort of the earlier stages were much more, just kind of playing around, and then we get more serious about how can we use this to acquire wisdom or truth, or for the betterment of ourselves and others, and as a spiritual practice. The healing stage also is more advanced because it requires that you remember more about your life beyond just the immediate dream that's being presented, and more about your body. So what I mean is, maybe you've got an ailment in daily life. You can focus on that part of the body, and with your dream body, manifest healing energy towards it. See what effect that has, if not just instilling really positive mindsets here. You might also try to find or make and send intentions for your life within the dream, to then go beyond and outside the dream to influence your dream. The dream space is so magical and open, and we're connecting with deeper parts of ourselves, so much more emotionally sensitive in dreams, really. It can be a good place to discover, what deep intentions do I hold? What does my heart really desire and want? And can I bring that out of the unconscious into the conscious? And while being lucid, really nice intermediary between the unconscious and the conscious. So becoming conscious, deep set desires, intentions, and then holding them and then waking up with them still in mind, connecting conscious selves to the unconscious, and then go live the day with that intention in mind. So using lucid dreaming for healing and self-improvement in that way. It'd be a cool utilization of the state. Now, a big one to discover the use of lucid dreams is for meditative, awakening purposes and playing with different states. Kind of put those together. In spirituality, they call it waking up or awakening, enlightenment. I really like the term becoming lucid, actually. Like, lucidity is a trait that we develop in waking life, and that there is a parallel between what is happening when we become lucid in dreams that can happen while we're awake. I mean, lucidity is to recognize what state you're in while you're in it. And this grants you more perspective and degrees of freedom and freedom from types of entanglement and suffering, to realize the nature of what we're dealing with while we're dealing with it. And in meditation practice, I would argue we're trying to become lucid, more and more lucid of our lives. I use the term waking up because it's just in the nomenclature. It's very popular, but it's not a waking up out of a dream. I wrote an article on this. Actually, you can't spiritually wake up, you can only become lucid. And lucid dreaming work just really highlights the mode of action here. So, if we're going to use lucid dreaming to advance our meditation journey, how can we? It's possible to get really deep insights into your mind here. We can just start doing meditation techniques in the dream, but it is much harder. Can you follow your breath? Again, that works. The concentration and the impulse control, and it's something interesting to train that faculty in a deprived state so that it becomes even stronger. Even when you're deprived, you can still work it. You don't totally lose it. Can you note the senses while you're in the dream? It can be difficult because everything is moving very fast. It's a very de-reified state, but the senses are still at work and things are kind of blurry. So it's a good sign you've got real sensory clarity if you can note the senses even in your dream. You can try to jhana, believe it or not. You could take different drugs in the lucid dream and see how that affects the state and getting you into more higher arousal states. And it's quite interesting how that can work, actually. You can simulate sort of taking a pill or smoking something in the dream, and then it has an immediate effect on the content of the dream and put you into states that then make it easier to do certain insight work. Look for the self in the dream. Notice the 3 characteristics. You can enter into highly symmetrical, defabricated states like the jhanas. Maybe there's a sort of lower voltage there than when you're awake. But there's still the potential for insight, amazingly. One cool thing you can do is you can close your dream eyes. While in the dream, you can close your dream eyelids and see the manifest reality just disappear in an instant. And this can give you a window of opportunity to recognize nothingness. Very quickly, things will start to form again because you haven't really closed your eyes, and just, the mind is going to project content into the space, but it's a way to get a brief moment of nothingness. The body isn't hardened in the dreams. There's really everything. The ground can go away. Close your eyes and maybe realize nothingness, maybe even nibbana. Can you become a witness in your dream and no longer be a character in the dream, but just observing the play? Something that happens to me now is sometimes I have dreams where Roger is not even in the dream. It's not about Roger. Roger's not involved. It's just other things happening, other actors. And the story is revolved around them. And then another technique here is to lucidly wake up and watch the world and self reconfigure itself. So can you remain very, very mindful and then maybe purposefully, intently wake up, or when it happens by itself, see how different aspects of your world slowly emerge, build upon themselves, and you watch the chain of causation in real time. This can show you it is possible to exist and be conscious of aspects of the world that we think are just baked in to existence that actually are not, actually emergent. Now you realize that process, you see in real time the process of their creation. So the mind isn't fundamentally taken in by them once you see that. That can be quite powerful. So these are a number of levels or stages people may go through when they're practicing lucid dreaming. Maybe you go in this order, maybe you don't. Maybe there's some other ways of interacting with that space I haven't mentioned, but these are the big ones that I see. And then lastly, this is a funny one. This is just kind of wraps the bow, puts everything back in its place in a loop. The last stage is to embrace the dream again. Maybe you've learnt a lot. You are lucid. But you go into the dream. You willingly participate in the story of the dream. Just a dream. You're having fun. And seeing where it takes you. Seeing what the mind wants to reveal. Yeah, and all the while not taking it so seriously. Yeah, so to come full circle, we willingly choose to go back into the dream. But there doesn't have to be an order here. You can still go back and explore at any of these different levels. It's just nice to have the ability to attend to all of them.